Michael Jackson was already halfway through a sold-out show when he stopped the band and pointed to a section no camera had touched all night. He told the crowd he had a mystery guest, but he didn't say a name. He only said this person had been part of his story long before fame ever found him. Security moved, the spotlight swept the stands, and a single figure stood up trembling. No one expected who it was. The reveal shocked 40,000 people. It was the summer of 1992, inside a massive stadium in Dallas, Texas, the kind of night where the air still held heat after sunset, and the crowd's noise felt physical, like it pushed against your chest. Backstage, everything ran like a machine. Headsets, time cues, dancers lining up, stage hands counting down seconds like they mattered more than money. On stage, Michael was unstoppable. He'd already delivered the big hits, the choreography, the moments that made the arena look like a moving ocean of arms. Now the set had shifted into the emotional stretch, slower tempo, softer lights, the part of the show where people stopped screaming long enough to actually listen. He finished a song and held still, breathing into the microphone. The band expected the next cue. Instead, Michael lifted one hand. The band cut. For a second, the crowd filled the silence with cheering, assuming it was another dramatic beat. But Michael didn't smile. He looked out over the audience like he was searching for one exact face. "I need you to stay with me," he said, calm and clear. "This isn't on the set list." A ripple moved through the stadium. People leaned forward. You could feel the attention tighten. Michael pointed to the far side of the arena, high up in the stands. "There's someone here tonight," he said, "who has been part of my life longer than the world knows." He paused like the next words mattered. Before the stage, before the lights, before the records, there was a voice that told me to keep going when I didn't want to. The crowd quieted more. Not perfect silence, but enough that you could hear the band members shifting their feet. Michael turned slightly to the stage manager at the wing and made a small motion with his fingers. The cameras rotated. The big screens flickered from Michael's face to the crowd. "Security," Michael said softly. "Help them stand, please." That sentence landed like electricity. People started looking around their own sections, whispering, pointing, trying to guess who it could be. A celebrity? A famous singer? A surprise duet? Then the spotlight hit a row near the upper seats, and a person stood up. Not wearing designer clothes, not acting like a star, just someone in a plain shirt and jacket, frozen under the light like they didn't understand how they'd become the center of the arena. The camera zoomed in. An older woman, short hair, simple earrings. Her hands were shaking so hard she had to grip the seat back in front of her to stay steady. The arena made a confused sound because this wasn't the mystery guest anyone had imagined. Michael's voice softened. "That's my teacher," he said. The stadium reacted with another wave of confusion. People didn't know what to do with that word, teacher, because it didn't fit the usual mythology. Stars weren't supposed to have teachers. They were supposed to be born ready. Michael held up his hand again. "Let me tell you what she did," he said, "and why she's here." Backstage, a few crew members exchanged looks. Even some of the band looked surprised. This wasn't rehearsed. There was no cue for it. Michael took one slow breath. "When I was a kid," he said, "I went to a school where nobody thought music was a future. They thought it was noise. They thought it was something you did after the real work was done." He paused, then pointed again to the woman in the stands. She didn't. The camera kept the woman's face on the big screens. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying loudly. She was trying to hold herself together like she didn't want to ruin his moment. "My name was on the board," Michael said. "I was small, quiet, tired, and I got in trouble a lot because I couldn't sit still. I had music in my body." A few laughs came from the crowd, gentle ones, like people recognizing the truth of it. "And one day," Michael continued, "the principal said I couldn't be in the choir anymore. He said I was distracted, that I was a problem." The woman in the stands closed her eyes for a second. Michael's voice sharpened just a little. "She walked into that office," he said, "and she told them, 'If you take his voice away, you're taking the only place he feels safe.'" The stadium went quieter. The story had everyone now. Michael looked down for a moment, then back up. They laughed at her, he said. They told her it didn't matter. They told her I'd grow out of it. He shook his head once. She didn't let me. Then Michael said the line that changed the mood completely. She paid for my first real music lessons with her own money. He didn't know what real lessons even meant back then, only that someone had finally taken him seriously. She'd meet him after school in a small community room with a chipped upright piano and a metronome that clicked like a clock. When the room was too expensive, she'd find another one, anywhere quiet, anywhere safe, because she refused to let his gift get lost in noise. Sometimes she showed up tired, still in her work clothes, but she never missed a session. And every time he wanted to quit, she'd tap the music stand once and say, "Again, because you're not done yet." You could hear the crowd's reaction in pieces, gasps, murmurs, disbelief. People expected a superstar to say a manager helped him or a producer discovered him. They didn't expect the origin story to be a teacher quietly paying for lessons. Michael held the microphone closer. "I didn't know at the time," he said. "I found out years later. She never told me. I only learned because I saw her name on the receipt." The woman in the stands covered her mouth with both hands. Her shoulders shook. Michael looked up at her. "And when I asked her why," he said, she said, "Because you were singing like you meant it, and I couldn't pretend I didn't hear you." A wave of emotion moved through the arena. People started crying in scattered pockets, because that sentence wasn't about fame. It was about being seen. Michael turned slightly toward the band and nodded. A single piano note played, soft, simple, like a heartbeat. Michael spoke again, quieter now. "Tonight," he said, "I wanted you to hear her name, because the world says one name. But the truth is, there are always hands that hold you up before you can stand." He paused, then smiled gently, the first real smile since he'd stopped the music. "Ms. Evelyn Carter," he said, "would you come down here?" The entire stadium held its breath. Security guided the woman down the stairs slowly. She moved like someone walking through water, careful, overwhelmed, terrified of falling. People in the rows reached out to touch her shoulder, not in a grabbing way, but like they were passing support along. When she reached the floor, she stopped at the barricade like she didn't know if she was allowed any closer. Michael stepped forward and extended his hand. Not dramatic, not performative, just a hand. Ms. Carter took it, and the moment she stepped onto the stage, the arena exploded, not with the chaotic screaming from earlier, but with something heavier. Respect, gratitude, the sound of people applauding a person they'd never heard of 5 minutes ago. Michael guided her to the center, away from the edge, and turned to face her. She couldn't speak at first. She just looked at him like she was staring at the grown-up version of a kid she used to protect. Michael leaned toward the microphone. "This," he said, "is the person who told me my voice mattered before anybody else did." Miss Carter finally found her voice, small and shaky. "You were always going to be you," she whispered. "I just didn't want them to dim you." Michael blinked hard and nodded. Then he turned to the crowd. "I'm going to sing one song," he said, "for every person who was kept alive by one kind adult." He looked back at Ms. Carter. "And for every teacher who spent their own money to save a kid's gift." The band came in gently. No fireworks, no choreography, just music. Michael sang, soft at first, then stronger, keeping the performance simple, like he didn't want the moment to feel like a show. Ms. Carter stood beside him with both hands clasped, crying quietly while the stadium listened like they had been instructed by something deeper than a microphone. When the song ended, Michael didn't rush her off stage. He didn't turn it into a quick thanks. He let the applause wash over her because she deserved to feel what it sounded like when the world said, "Thank you." Before she stepped down, Michael leaned in and said something only she could hear. She nodded, still crying. Then, as she left, Michael spoke one final sentence into the mic, calm and certain. "Fame is loud," he said, "but the people who save you are usually quiet." The stadium stood up. 40,000 people on their feet clapping for a teacher whose name most of them would forget, but whose act they would never forget. And for the rest of the night, the show was different. The crowd screamed less, they listened more, like they'd been reminded that the greatest thing on that stage wasn't a dance move. It was gratitude. If this story stayed with you, please like and subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness can be louder than any spotlight. Have you ever had one person believe in you when you didn't believe in yourself? Tell us in the comments and hit the notification bell for more untold, documentary-style stories from the world of music.